it. I actually figured it out this morning. So, exciting day. It is our first capital update of the 2026 legislative session. It's early January, and we're already 3 days down, 27 to go. So, with that, I'm also excited to introduce kind of new to the team. Tim Howe with BCA is now leading the governmental affairs team over there, downstairs, I should say. And so we're excited to have Tim with us to talk about the first 3 days and what we can expect in the legislative season. But also a lot of work for those of you who are not aware, which I'm sure that is none of you on this call. It's also an election year. So, a little bit of update on what that means as well. So, Tim, welcome. We are glad to have you on the team and looking forward to a great session. So, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Paige. Well, glad to be here. And as Paige said, it's for me, I'm about 6 weeks in, and y'all know how it is. Like every week that goes by, you can rely less and less on. Well, I'm the new guy. Whatever excuses you can use from time to time. But it has been interesting because coming in first, I started 1st of December at BCA, and so much was already going. It was like getting onto a moving train. And on the sort of our political side, we'd already made the vast majority of our endorsements, and then on the legislative side, it's 6 weeks prior to the Senate. The legislature getting into session, and so the runway was short. That nevertheless, we are off and running. And I thought today I would just kind of highlight very briefly, and maybe there's probably even one or two of you have heard this already, but kind of highlight very briefly how we're structured currently at BCA in terms of our governmental affairs effort. It's kind of important to me that people understand what we're doing and who is doing it. Maybe even more importantly. So, as y'all probably know, obviously, for us, there's a lobbying component and a political action committee component, Progress PAC, and there's also a communications component, and then the political component, which is sort of extra important this year. But I always tell everybody that those four things are four wheels on the same car, and kind of what we're trying to do here this year is trying to calibrate all four of those components, and so that we're all spinning, so to speak, in a proper way and in a way that is coordinated. And I always tell people that not one of those things is really more important than the other in the grand scheme of things, and that they all each three have an effect on the other one, and so on and so forth. So that's really our effort here, and kind of what I have been charged with over here is to try and coordinate that effort in a way that just sort of maximizes our effectiveness on behalf of our members in the Alabama business community. So that's what we're trying to do. We've got a great team. Bradshaw Tyson oversees our communications, and Caroline Franklin oversees the political action committee, and then Scott McClintock oversees all of our political activity. And then the neat thing about what we're doing now is that, including myself, all four of us are BCA's registered lobbyists now. And so all four of us are going to be at the State House. All four of us are going to be walking up and down the hallway. So I think we've got a great team, a strong team. And, these are all of the things that it takes to be an effective advocacy organization. So that's kind of where we are at BCA. As y'all know, obviously they went into session on Tuesday, and the first week is always a little bit slow. And yet, as we like to say, this session is the last one in the quadrennium before the election, and what tends to happen, as many of you know, is just that they like to get out quickly so that they can get home. Not everyone has a race, but the people that do have races care deeply about them and want to get home so that they can undertake that campaign. And so what we've seen so far is just a lot of bills have been introduced in the first week, and I think there were nearly 300 in the House of Representatives that were introduced this week, and there was, I think, 171 were introduced in the Senate. And I think that's just a sign of people wanting to go ahead and get their bills moving because they know that the 30 days of the Alabama legislative session will run out quickly this year. They were in 3 days this week. Traditionally they'll come in on Tuesday and they'll go onto the floor, and then Wednesday is just a committee work day, and then Thursday will be another day on the floor. And traditionally they'll work through the session with that sort of pattern of 2-day work weeks on the floor, which theoretically takes 15 weeks to get to 30 days. Well, if you add that extra day in on Wednesday, then that just allows them to get out that much more quickly. And so this week they did go in 3. We expect them to go in 3 days again next week. So a lot of those bills are moving very quickly. We're tracking, more than 3 dozen bills that we're tracking right now that, affect our members in some significant way. That number will obviously increase. But if you think about it, in the House, nearly half of the bills that you would expect to get filed throughout the entire session got filed in the first week. So they're pretty far along. And, it's certainly this week we talked about it. There's a lot of air traffic control for us this week, just trying to figure out what was coming in, what we should care about, and what we should track on behalf of our members, and where we need to work. And so, it's one of those things where, being in the first week of the session, trying to understand, again, looking globally at the entirety of it, I think that, as you try to understand how long it will go and some of the things that will happen, I think we're trying to assess, thus far, what is essential for them this year, and particularly as it relates to the issues that we track, but just overall, what is essential. And, putting beside the budgets, which they're constitutionally mandated to pass, putting that aside, this is a year where not only do they want to get out early, but being the 4th year, by and large, they have worked on the big ticket items already at this point in the quadrennium in the first 3 sessions. So there tends to not be as much left on their plates. And so I don't know that there is a whole lot that is essential for them to pass between now and the end of the session. I know, and one thing that's significant to y'all and us is, the Speaker of the House continues to make workforce development a priority, and he has an initiative that is a career and technical education initiative that he is working on. Next week, there is a meeting amongst stakeholders in the business community that he's having, that is a little bit of a town hall type forum just for business community stakeholders, where he wants to get some input on his career and technical education initiative, and just, things that matter to us. And obviously our whole team's going to be there, as well as just really almost all of the business associations in Montgomery. What comes out of that will be interesting to see. There's not a piece of legislation right now. If and when he does bring that out, obviously we're going to be participating in that process, and that will be a priority for him, and that will be one piece of legislation, I think, that will be essential to him. I will say it was interesting. We were in the Alabama Growth Alliance meeting the other day, and someone was providing some statistics on just career education in our K through 12, and they said that, amongst the research that has been done, that 68% of our high school graduates come out needing a job, needing employment. And it's something where until you hear that number, you don't really think about it, because that's how many students are not going on to a 4-year education in Alabama. And that's a pretty significant number. And, trying to meet the needs, trying to understand how we can equip them to go right to work in, the businesses that y'all and us represent, I think is just going to be really the most critical focus of what he's doing. And so we're excited to participate in that and excited to see what he has. Other than that, we've just got various bills that we're tracking. It's early. It's the first week. I would love to, entertain any questions. And like I said, just looking forward, next week is another 3-day week, much fuller calendars. They in the House on Thursday, they passed an election bill, an election audit bill, which took a little bit of time. And then in the Senate, they just handled a calendar with just a few sort of bills that I think were left over from last year, and as well as a few sunset bills on boards and commissions. So nothing too terribly exciting or earth-shattering happened this week, but I would imagine that business will pick up considerably going forward. And there's already numerous committees posted for next week. And but again, if there's anything specific that y'all want to talk about, glad to do it. It's been a little bit of a busy yet unexciting first few days this week. So,
Sam?
Hey, Tim. I am curious about the workforce town hall you are having this next week. Are there any components of policy that's being talked about you think you might learn more about, or any kind of inclination of how that's going to go?
I think, Sam, it's one of those things where I think the speaker just wants to provide a forum for people to come in, and I think there's going to be a wide range of business associations there. I know that there may be a little bit of a focus on manufacturing industries. I know that there's a few of those folks have got kind of, so to speak, a prominent seat at the table. And I know he really wants to hear from them specifically as, we continue to recruit these large manufacturers, that how can we help them? It's interesting because I think that will be not the only focus, but I do think that's going to be really important in this package, is trying to understand how to equip these kids. Because it was interesting. Helena and I had a meeting with some steel manufacturers, large steel manufacturer from South Alabama, the big plant down in North Mobile County. And, one of the things they said that they are just so active in doing is proactive outreach into these high schools and trying to get these kids into a position where, they can at least get them taking classes and thinking ahead of time, before they graduate, on some of the skills that will help them in their business. And it's not just it's really interesting because, and these are some of the things I think the speaker he mentioned the other day in the Growth Alliance meeting that he really wants to focus on is it's not even just skills that are specific to an industry, or the automotive industry or the steel industry or whatever, but you got to think bigger, is what he is saying about these ancillary jobs. And it was so interesting that he said that at a meeting at like 11 o'clock that morning. And Helena and I had a meeting with these folks later that evening. And, they spoke about the need for electricians at their business. And it's really interesting because they said, it's one thing to train kids to be residential electricians. He said, we need even a more specialized type of electrician. And he said, so that's one of the things that we really would love for schools to do is, even if it's very regional, even if it's specific to areas, is how can we, equip these schools and kind of give them greater flexibility so that when you have a steel manufacturer that has these real complex wiring systems where they need electricians, and these kids can be 18, 19 years old when they do it, they just have to be trained. I say all that to say, Sam, I do think he wants to try and dial in on those types of jobs that are just going to require more flexibility for these school systems in these specific areas. So
Thanks, Tim. And I'll say from our membership, and I'd love to hear if others chime in if you're the same thing. I talk to our members, and 95% of members, whether it's a large, a large manufacturer or a mom and pop shop or anything in between, the number one problem is workforce. And the number one thing they talk about workforce is the soft skills side of things. So, especially for the kids coming right out of high school, a lot of companies tell us, well, we can train them to do what we need them to do. We work with the community college, we work at AIDT. We have great structures in the state to work with these folks. A lot of times, the thing they talk about is just communication skills, teamwork skills, being able to be a part of a team and take direction and grow as a part of a team. So, if I know that is so key at that level of the high school or the CTE level before they get on to, their first real job out of high school. So, if there's room to add that to the conversation as well, I'm sure there'll be others who will echo that. But that's a big talking point from a lot of our manufacturers and folks outside of manufacturing as well.
So real quick on that too, Sam. I know that Secretary Reed at Workforce, who was actually my former boss, he and I have been friends a long time, but that is one of the areas I know they're trying to develop some programs to really address that exact thing that you're talking about. Just
Great.
Understanding trying to train people in the things, and you got to remember, you got ages of maturity here, and you're trying to get them right into the workforce, and they've got to understand, in terms of getting to work early, and understand in terms of, how that affects your job and your business when you don't do that, and things that there's a lot of programs that are the most, what we would think of some of the most basic skills that, when you're 16, 17, trying to train these kids that, no, these are fundamental to any good job. So, so I do agree with you. There's a lot of conversation about that.
And Tim, I know we've had this conversation. One last thing I'll add. I know that we've had this conversation this week about a piece of legislation, SB 91. I know that Paige has brought it up to the CCA board. So for those of y'all on the call who aren't aware, there's a bill that was dropped. And Tim, if you want to comment on it, I'd appreciate that. But a bill that was dropped by a state senator from my neck of the woods that would make it easier for municipalities or counties that are in entities with multiple municipalities or counties and taking in tax revenue, make it a lot easier for them to withdraw from those agreements from those entities. In our area, it'd be very negative for our local economic development authority, which is a cooperation of cities and counties. And so for our community, we're definitely against it from our chamber. We're mobilizing our business community. I want to thank Paige for sharing it with CCAA and trying to mobilize our chambers across the state as well. But we're pretty confident that there's a lot of opposition to this bill being a statewide piece of legislation. But we would just appreciate support from any and all of you. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to speak more about it. And Tim, if you'd like to speak on as well, I would think.
Yeah, Sam. So obviously we have been tracking that bill and have had some conversations with local economic developers and understanding the effect in areas even outside of your area, and have had some good conversations with them and with leadership in the legislature to try and help them understand kind of where the larger economic development community, kind of how they view this piece of legislation. So I think the education was quick and effective. And so I do think there'll probably be a lot of scrutiny over this piece of legislation here in the coming weeks. And I think it's, y'all have done a great job kind of making people aware of it. And I know that, specifically the local economic developers have all been talking to each other about this, and so there's a lot of awareness right now as to where this is.
Great. Thank you, Tim.
And I just dropped a link to that piece in the chat if anybody wants to grab that so you can look at the bill. All right. And kind of just Tim and Sam kind of going back to your talk about the soft skills. I was at a meeting. And Sam, I think you were there too in Huntsville that community college system did earlier. And there was a lot of conversation on a panel with industry and businesses talking about, and we kind of take it for granted. I can't tell you, I even made the comment that I don't need to sit through another how to work multi-generations class, but these were employers talking about the importance of making sure that in their particularly middle management area and those who are maybe managing people for the first time, is classes, and this is, I think, something that Secretary Reed would be in that interested in, is making sure that there is some training on dealing with the multiple generations for that management level. So particularly going back to that soft skills, we get a lot of it in our industry, but it was interesting to hear the employers talking about that as well. Okay. Anybody else have questions for or thoughts or some another piece of legislation that we need to be particularly in the over 400 bills that have already been
Well, I don't have a bill or anything, but I would like for us to, I'd like to put in a plug for something that I'd love to see go statewide. 3 years ago, we got a grant from one of our local companies of $57,000 to put youth science in all of our schools, our 2 school systems. We've now got 3 years data on it, and I would love to see the state get away from Cooter and go to youth science on the aptitude test. We are having phenomenal results, and all of our career coaches, counselors, principals, teachers, and everything absolutely love youth science so much better than Cooter. Cooter is a test that finds out what these students' interest is. Youth science is a test that finds out what these students are good at. And we've got students now over 3 years that have taken this test that are finding out they had no idea they had an aptitude for whatever their strength is. And a lot of it is manufacturing. A lot of it is construction. And so therefore, they're literally changing their whole thought process of what they're going into because of youth science. We've ended the 3 years, and like I said, we got great data for it. We presented it. We were looking to get another company to fund it for the next 3 to 5 years. One of our local manufacturers absolutely jumped all over it, gave us $94,000 to fund it for our 2 school systems for the next 5 years. And they loved it so much, they spent another $20,000 to get the test, to give it to all of their employees to make sure they had them in the right positions. Then, along with the youth science has also got certification. We had another one of our companies that's given us $70,000 to put it into the high schools, so these students can graduate with certifications. And so I would love to see the state look at putting youth science, replacing Cooter with youth science. And I don't know what that would take. We've talked to a couple of people. We actually talked to Will Ainsworth a year or so ago about it. But I think it would be a fantastic change and make a world of difference statewide.
Paige, one of the things that we're really watching too is the teacher shortage and the bills that are coming out to combat that. That's something that our members have really brought up in our public policy agenda, something we addressed last year after talking to our superintendents who attended our public policy meeting. And I know Terry Collins has just put out HB 124, and our superintendents are in support of anything that could help them right now with teacher shortage. But it's not just, it's in every aspect, special education now, even English. So they're seeing it across the board with the teacher shortages. So that's something we're really trying to pay attention to.
Paige, also, just to echo what Rick said about U-Science, all three of our school systems here in Morgan County, Rick, they all, we started U-Science with them and they liked it so much. You were talking about grants and industry funding them. Our school systems, we paid for it the first 2 years. Third year, we did half, but they found so much benefit from it that they paid the other half. Now they fund it themselves. That's how much benefit they find in it. But I don't know that they'll ever get away from Cooter. So I feel, it's just they do both. And but U-Science is it's a great program. And what I'll say to the speakers, education and workforce bill, I'll say with our membership here at the Decatur Morgan County Chamber, what we're finding when you talk about electricians and you talk about, floor installation, all of those different trades, what's happening is our companies, their employment is so close to retirement age. So that's, we are really pushing for those jobs as well, because that's what we hear from them, that their employers are right at that age of retirement. So we've got to find a way to fill in those gaps.
Unmute. Anybody else have bills that you're even if it's a local, I've heard, or somewhere in this week of flurry of activity and conversation, I think with this last year, the quadrennium, and there was a lot of local legislation that got kind of rolled over from the last session, that there'll be a little bit more of a focus on kind of local legislation early to get those done, get those out. So if there's a piece of local legislation, let us know if there's something that that's affecting your area particularly. Sam, I think you initially thought that House Bill 91 would be local, but it's now state.
Senator Melson brought a similar piece of local legislation before. I think that I think he just understood that wasn't going to be possible based on what the local delegation, how they would vote on that. And so that's why I went statewide. But, obviously it's a very different piece of legislation once it goes statewide and affects entities not located in Lauderdale or Colbert County.
Good. Okay. We usually try to do about 30, 40 minutes. So we're kind of getting close to time, but Tim, would you mind, or I think the Scott, that's on is maybe Scott McClintock. Would one of you spend just a few minutes talking about, I know we're in blackout, like when qualifying ends, and then also, give us the website that you guys have for, Progress Pack, just to kind of follow who, you talk about endorsements and things like that. So
Sure. If Scott, I didn't know if Scott was on or not. Are you on, Scott?
Yep, but you don't get me on camera because I'm driving. Politically, as Paige said, we're in blackout period right now. We are 7 days away from qualifying day. So that means next Friday at 5 p.m., everybody that is running for office will be set. No more late additions or anything like that. So as of last night when I checked, I think we were looking at 2 open Senate seats and 7 open House seats. That's far down from what average is. I think the average is usually 7 Senate seats and 21 House seats. So about a third of what the average is. And then primaries, about 20% of the body has contested primaries right now. So what's that? 35 senators. I think we're looking at maybe 8 primaries and 105 House members, looking at about 20 something primaries. So, and then general elections, we're actually right now projecting to be far down there. But we'll know for sure these things starting on 5 o'clock on Friday. Of course, we'll keep y'all posted. I think we'll meet in 2 weeks, and so we'll have some more definition by then. We will follow up with the website. We have all of our endorsed candidates on a web page, and so by county, by district, make sure that y'all can see that. So we will email that to you. So far we're excited about where things stand. We've got several competitive races, but like I said, not as many as we have in the past. So we'll be able to make a deeper impact in fewer races. Our dollars will stretch further in these races. So we're excited about that. Paige, what else did I miss?
Yep, that's it. I appreciate it. Yep, just get us that that page, and so we will share that when you guys are done. Anybody have anything else for Tim, Scott, the team?
Hey Paige, it's Caroline. I'm also not on
Caroline.
camera. I'm sorry, I'm headed to the airport, but I did want to just let y'all know about a few endorsements that we have made in legislative races here. House District 91, Jody Linton is his name. He's a candidate running for Rhett Marcus's seat, who is now running for Congress. So that's an open seat there. Jody is a CPA with Carr, Riggs and Ingram. He's very well known and respected in that community. Some of you may know him. And so a lot of our members really, really like him, and we really feel like he will be a solid pro-business candidate for us in the State House. So we announced that endorsement a few weeks ago. We also announced our endorsement of Wes Allen for Secretary of State last week. I'm sure some of you saw that news. We're super excited to support Wes in this role. He's obviously been a longtime friend of many of ours in the House of Representatives, and also as Secretary of State. I'm trying to think, Tim, if I've forgotten any. I know we have another legislative endorsement coming out, but we are not announcing it until Monday, so I'll probably wait to just share that on our next call. But is there anyone I'm missing, Tim, that we've just announced?
I don't think so. As Caroline and Scott have just done incredible work with the political and the PAC, and I showed up and pretty much all the work was done. So it's been, recently we've just got a few other things, as Caroline outlined, that we've been working on. But, with, as Scott mentioned, candidate qualifying is ending this a week from today. And so
I did just
everything's
remember.
going to be
Oh, I'm
pretty,
sorry, Tim.
pretty set.
I did remember Norman Crow in Tuscaloosa won his special election this week. So that was super exciting. He has been a longtime BCA board member. I'm sure several of you know him as well. So he won that special election for House District 63. And he is now in the State House and one of our pro-business partners over there. So he will, that was a special election. So he will be turning around and having to run again in that May 19th primary.
Perfect. And thank you. Scott just put in the chat the link to the Progress PAC endorsements page. So you guys grab that and take a look at it. Kind of to wrap us up, with time, a couple of quick things from us. If you are doing your drive-in, and hopefully most of you are doing a drive-in this year to Montgomery, please let me know. I'd love to join you guys. While you're in Montgomery, send me the dates if you need assistance. Tim and the BCA team are always great to have to speak to your delegation that's coming to Huntsville. I see Chip down there, and I just thought about Huntsville. I know the dates for yours are on the calendar. But if you're coming to Montgomery, just let us know. Happy to join you guys. Secondly, February 4th is Chamber Day at the Capitol. This will be our second annual, we can call that now, second annual Chamber Day at the Capitol. If you have not registered, please do it by 5 o'clock today, because we are closing registration. We are maxed out. That room is, we have about 4 seats remaining. So we have a full day scheduled, hearing from great leaders here in Montgomery. Another great day that will also provide some opportunity for you guys to go and see your delegates, see your legislators at the State House. So please do join us, make plans. It's going to be a really full, impactful day. But register by 5 o'clock today.
Paige, it's Caroline again. I
Hi,
did
Caroline.
just think of one more thing to share, and I'm sorry if this has already been said, so pardon me if I'm repeating, but BCA does our Tuesday morning issues briefings every Tuesday morning during session, where we have some legislators come over and talk with us and talk with some of our members. So we had Governor Ivey last week, but we are kicking off next week with Lieutenant Governor Ainsworth. And then we'll run through some legislative leadership and some of our friends in the State House. So we live stream those on the BCA Facebook page. So if you're ever in Montgomery, please feel free to come by our office and join us there at 9 a.m. on Tuesdays during session. But if not, you can always catch them on our Facebook page.
Perfect. Yep. And thank you, Caroline. I had meant to mention that. All right. Well, does anybody have anything else for the greater good? Well, Tim, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the
Thank
team.
you.
And
Thanks, Paige.
I hope that you guys will let us know if there's something that we can be of assistance, if there's something that we can do to help you. These are critical updates as we go through the legislative session. Our next will be Friday. We do them every other Friday. So the next will be January the 30th. Again, at 10 a.m. Carlo will be sending out the Outlook invites. You can register on our website now, so please be sure to do that, and we will go from there. I hope everybody has a great long weekend. Enjoy a 3-day weekend, and we'll see you soon. Bye, guys.